Welcome to the Sandy and Toddcast, a podcast about all things strange, unusual, and a little bit odd. Why? Because that's how we roll. What are we talking about this time? Check it out. Episode 1 of the Sandy and Toddcast, and I'm Sandy.
And I'm Julio.
You know what? This
funny? You call it Sandy and Todd, and neither one of us are Sandy or Todd. And here's the other funny thing. Like, I know you, and I really thought about this. I know you not only as Sandy, but I know you as Brittany. And I'm thinking a lot of times when I'm talking to people, I'm like, oh, Brittany this, Brittany that, you know? And I'm like, I'm going to end up calling her Brittany on the podcast. I just know it.
But you do it in emails. You were doing it for the longest time. You were calling me Brittany in emails. And then it was like you caught yourself and put Sandy in parentheses. I'm like, oh, my God. But I do answer to just about anything. Years ago when I was working I used to work at a bank, international banking. And when I first started out my career, I worked there for about 22 years. When I first started out my career, I was on the phone unit. I'm using quotes, the phone unit. And we had retail branches back then. They were bought by Chase many years ago, 20 years ago. Our branches would call in wire transfers to us, verbally call them into us, and we'd have to input them into the computer. And I'd do the normal greeting, this is Sandy speaking, and I'd get hi, Debbie, hi, Tasha. I got some really strange ones. Brenda.
Because they couldn't understand you or what? Or just because? Because
they don't listen, because they were half listening.
Right.
So they would just call me all kinds of things. And in the beginning, I almost took it personally, like, no, it's Sandy. And then by the end, I spent about a year on the phone unit, and I loved it because you get to know everybody because they call regularly. But I just kind of went along with it after a while. If somebody new called, I was Brenda. I was their Debbie. It didn't matter. That's who I was. So, yeah. So I answer to pretty much anything these days. Brittany, Sandy, you know how it goes.
So let me ask you this. So we both are in radio, and you've got two names because of the radio thing. So have you ever completely messed up and said your real name instead of your radio name?
No. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because when I got into radio, I was just it's something I always wanted to do since I was a kid. And I was very introverted, very shy, stayed to myself. It would have never worked for me. If I had gone to college for speech communications, I had a business minor and then a concentration in radio TV. That was what it was back in the 80s. I went there for it, but I didn't have what it took to be an outgoing person on the air to really do it. And so as much as I wanted to, I ended up in retail management. Then I ended up in banking. So by the time I actually had my foot in the door and got into radio, I was so excited. I didn't have to do a fake name, but I needed a fake name because that's what made me excited to do it, because it was what you think of as a radio person.
Having a fake name?
Yeah, having a fake name. And so I was so excited to be able to do it. I never messed it up. It was just something that I became Brittany Lee when I was doing it. And it was so important to me. I've never done it. Now, I have said the wrong radio station.
Sure.
That happens to me all the time, even on Smooth 70s. I'll still say my previous radio station once in a while. I'll be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Where did that come from? It's been months.
Because you get in that mindset. You're not really there. Your mind and mouth and your imagination takes over, and you're not thinking about all the stuff that a typical person would have to think about. So when you're pressing buttons and you're talking over the intros of songs, it's something that's happening naturally. And sometimes that filter that you need to make sure you say the right thing isn't there. And so I do that all the time too, but I just thought that was interesting. Like, I only have two air names right now, my real name and then my real second name. And I use both of them depending on which station I'm on. So I have to make sure that this station uses the real name and this station doesn't use the real name.
You know what, though? I think that makes a difference because mine is so different than what my name is that it's probably not as difficult for me to separate them as it would be for you, because your two names are obviously so similar.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this. How many years have you been in radio?
I started in 1990.
I'm the baby. Yeah. I've only been in 4 years. Yeah. I'm the baby. So 1990.
Now, age-wise, you're younger than me too, right?
I I teach you about that all the time.
Well, but not by much, right?
You're an old man. February 6th, I'll be 50 years old.
So,
50.
I mean, we're so close. I'm going to be 51 on the 13th of the same month.
I know.
Yeah.
I know, but you're still older than me. Oh, thank you. Let the record show that I just got the double bird. The double bird.
You did air quotes earlier. I did air birds.
Eventually, I think we should go to video for this. I think it'd be hilarious.
Think so,
oh, my God. We could do signs and all kinds of things. It would be hilarious. So you've done all kinds of things in radio. Let's talk about how we met, because I think this story is hilarious. I love this story.
So I am part of a paranormal group that does a show on Amazon Prime. And out of the blue, this nutcase reaches out to me.
I stalked you. Let's just say it. Let's just put it.
Oh, my God, I love you. Are you married? And, stuff like that.
I didn't quite say that. I didn't quite say it like that. I'll admit to the stalking, but I don't think I said it quite like that.
At any rate, I was stupid in my youth on TV, and I actually responded to her, which is something I've learned to not do anymore. But yeah, that's how we met, and then we kind of struck up a friendship that has had some rocky turns, and then everything's good now.
Yeah, it was funny because I literally did kind of stalk you, but we have a lot in common, and
it's kind of weird how much we have in common.
I know.
It really is.
It really is.
To be honest.
And I had no idea about any of that. I had no idea where this would lead us. I just liked the show. I thought it was really well done, and you stood out to me.
The guy was hot. Yeah, I know. I get it.
Dear Lord. Anyways. So and then I realized we had two people in common. Now, what are the chances of that? You live in Wisconsin, Skip Clark,
yep,
who is a really nice guy. We've gone to a lot of concerts over the years, like many, many concerts. And Skip has helped us get some meet and greets that we might not have been able to get because they were in Syracuse or outside the area. And, the radio market. And some of these promoters won't give tickets to people outside of their market. So he's helped us out, and we've helped him with some stuff over the years. He's a really nice guy out of Syracuse, the Wolf. If anybody ever gets a chance to listen, Skip's a great guy. And also John, who's out in the Albany market. We're kind of where I am. It's sort of right smack dab in the middle. So we had those two in common. So I thought, well, he can't be that crazy. So I thought I'm going to message him and tell him I appreciate the show and that I like the show because I have a background in paranormal as well, which we'll be doing some really cool paranormal episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I reached out to you, and you were very mean to me.
I was not mean to you.
you were very cold. Here I'm trying to make a new friend because I'm trying to make a new friend.
I wasn't mean.
I'm laughing as I said this.
Okay, good. I was not mean. In fact, I was probably too nice, and that's why you stuck around like a goddamn cat that, got some milk out on the back porch.
But look at how it ended up, though. We're like BFFs.
And I still got the cat
forever.
hanging out on the back porch. It won't go away.
But then, so you were very cold, but then we started talking to each other, and we realized how much we had in common. And then we got in a little argument, and I don't remember what that was about.
I could, at some point, I won't do it today, but we'll have the conversation about the argument.
All right. Trying to remember it the other day, and I couldn't remember what the argument was.
Because I'm an asshole, and and there's certain things I won't say or admit to, and you needed that, and that became the argument.
I don't even remember.
Oh,
all right. So we'll have to talk about that. We'll have to talk about that because I don't remember. So anyways, so it was like 3 days we didn't talk to each other. And obviously we both hated it because then you messaged me and you said something like, are we over this? Are we going to start talking again? And I was like, I guess so. And
you weren't like, I guess so. You're like, oh, thank the Lord. I've missed you so much.
I highly doubt that. I don't quite remember it that way.
She was weeping.
I was weeping. Oh, that's nice. No, I wasn't. So, but I missed you. So after that, things really kind of settled down a little bit. I think we were just trying to figure out who we were in this friendship and what was going on. And so then things just settled down. And then now we're like BFFs, which I appreciate.
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about the paranormal backgrounds because I really think that makes us who we are too, is the fact that we have this in common. What is your background with the paranormal?
Well, I'll go way back. Like my interest in it started, ironically, a movie that I watched again last night, which was Amityville Horror.
Which we're going to have an episode on that.
Okay.
I really want to talk about the Amityville Horror.
So I remember as a youth, a very striking young man, seeing the movie actually not being allowed to watch the movie. It was too scary. Okay. But my family had the book as well. And I would sneak the book and read it and then, get the shit scared out of me and not be able to sleep for several nights. And then I'd go back to the book and whatever. But that was the first time in my lifetime where somebody said, hey, this is real. This is a real story. Hauntings are real. Right. Ghosts happen. Other stuff happens that you can't explain. And obviously, there's a lot of backstory to that, whether or not it's true, blah, blah, blah. Not getting into that today. But that was the first time I went, I guess ghosts are kind of real. Mm-hmm. And then my interest really peaked again when shows like Ghost Hunters came out. Yeah. And now I was seeing actual individuals going out and investigating with equipment and technology and scientific thought processes as to what was going on and revealing evidence that kind of piqued my interest. And they were using equipment that, being in radio, I used every day, some of the software and stuff like that. So right. That's when I went, wow, this is really interesting. So I started doing a little bit of investigating on my own. And then what really kind of kicked it off for me was, and I don't remember the year, but years ago, 2004, maybe 2005, I was doing a morning show and my producer of the show, and I use air quotes when I say that, Michael Brown, set up an event for Halloween at a reportedly haunted location in the city that I was working. And we had a team come in from out of town and do the investigation. And that was the first time that he and I had worked together. And then from there, it sprung into a couple of movies that I was kind of involved with. And then the TV show, which I was kind of involved with. So it's always been an interest to me, and it still is. And over the years, obviously, I've changed some thought processes on it and stuff like that. And I will say this, since I've known you, I've learned more about myself in those realms than I ever knew before. Yeah. So what about, how did it start for you?
Well, I don't remember a time when I wasn't fascinated by the paranormal.
But isn't there a difference between being little and thinking about ghosts and spooks and stuff like that, and then realizing that it's not just the fairy tale kind of stuff?
Yes.
Wasn't there kind of, yeah. Okay.
I always had this fascination with it. I used to watch In Search Of. I actually have the full In Search Of
my God.
DVD set. I have it.
Oh my God. With what's his name?
The guy from Star Trek.
Right? Yeah. What's his name? Leonard Nimoy.
Leonard Nimoy. Yes. And that was my first real, I remember the one episode where they did the Bigfoot and they had the famous film footage of the Bigfoot. Of course, the name escapes me now, but
Sasquatch.
No, the Patterson films. The Patterson films.
Okay.
I know who Sasquatch is.
Yeah.
By the way, just an aside, Whitehall, New York, I think I told you this. Whitehall, New York is considered the Sasquatch capital of New York State. It's up near Lake George in the northeastern quadrant of New York State. So if you ever come out to visit, maybe we should do a Sasquatch hunt.
That would be fun. And as you're talking, I'm writing down a couple of questions for you as you go.
Okay.
So go ahead.
All right. So over the years, I ate up anything that I possibly could find on the paranormal because there wasn't much then. You're talking the 70s when there was no television about ghost investigations or anything like that. So I would eat up anything I could find, cryptozoology, the In Search Of stuff, anything like that. So that was the beginning for me. And I always loved a good mystery. I used to watch last night I was watching the Hardy Boys Nancy Drew Mysteries. Don't shake your head and roll your eyes. It was so cheesy. It's 40 years ago. I forgot how cheesy it really is. That was my start into things. And my personal experiences aside, that was all of the kind of stuff I would look for and try to do. And now the Amityville Horror was huge for me back then. Amityville Horror, the movie, scared the living heck out of me. I watched that all the time. I read the book. I would read as many books as I could find because that was something that you could actually get your hands on, unlike television. The Exorcist. So all of that stuff kind of molded my interest in the paranormal growing up. And it wasn't until about 2005 4 when Ghost Hunters came around, which was completely new. Like you said, completely different. They were actually going in locations that it just sparked it for me. And I always said, this is something that I need to do. Not I want to do. This is something I need to do because I've always felt like there is so much more to the world, to our thought process, to our understanding than what people tell us we need to understand or see or feel. And so that kind of did it for me. And I've just been obsessed with it, you know, not in the crazy way, but obsessed with the paranormal for many, many years, my whole life.
One of the things, and I don't watch the paranormal, and I can never say paranormal correctly, so get used to that. But I don't watch a lot of those shows anymore. And I think one of the reasons why, for me, is because when it first started out, they were helping a lot of families. They were going into people's homes, finding out what was going on there. And then all of a sudden, the big thing was, they got into Alcatraz, or they got into, you know, the state penitentiary, or they got into the lunatic asylum, you know, and those are cool. Those were like big event kind of things, but they kind of got away from doing it small term for small families and stuff. And I thought, for me, that was cool. Like somebody's actually living where this door is opening and closing by itself.
Right.
They're dealing with it. So, okay. So in listening to your talk, I have a problem. That is, then I always want more information. So paranormal, you could talk about ghosts. You could talk about things like Sasquatch or Loch Ness. You could talk about aliens, right? It kind of all goes into. Is there one of those that you have more interest in, or one that you have least interest in that grouping itself? And is there something else that you throw into that grouping?
I guess that for me, I've always been more, and one of the reasons for this is because I am an empath, and I'm learning this more because over the years, I sort of, as an empath, a lot of people, and you know this too, a lot of people kind of deny it. They block it. They don't understand it. They don't even know it exists. You just think you're depressed, or you think that you're crazy. So for many years, I didn't know or understand what I was. I'm just learning this more in the past couple of years. I am an empath. I am clairsentient, and I am claircognizant. Empaths and clairsentient.
And Claire Huxtable. I got to throw that one.
I'm Claire Huxtable. Yes. No, don't put me near Bill Cosby. I couldn't handle that.
It's a fun time.
It sure is. For those who aren't aware of it, empaths and clairsentients are very much related. Empaths are people who feel energies, and we could have a whole episode on this, and maybe we should, about experiences that we've had over the years that we just never even realized what was going on, and those that we do. But they are people who feel energies, whether it's the energy of the earth, the energy of other people. I could feel the energy of, during the beginning of the pandemic, I was going through a really rough time. You know that.
You were freaking nuts.
I was nuts.
I was worried about you because you were losing.
Well, I was in my own turmoil. I was feeling the world's turmoil. I was feeling the people around me, their turmoil, their energy. And I just didn't understand what to do with it at the time. I'm much better now.
You're totally better. I remember going, put up your walls.
I know. And I eventually listened, but it's hard when you don't really understand what's going on to begin with. The last thing that an empath who's learning how to be an empath needs is a pandemic and a world shutdown. And so that was really tough. And clairsentients are people who are in these, I guess you could say, the psychic realm. They are almost like empaths times 10. So I can go into a location and I can feel energy. I can feel when it's next to me. I can feel whether it's male or female. And claircognizance is just knowing things. And I can give some examples of that when we have a show on it too. Sometimes I just know things. I'll know a spirit's name. I'll know the situation behind a spirit and why they are the way they are, why they're at a place that they're at. When you were talking about helping families, I'm part of an internet show called Ghost Pubs and Grub. And we go into haunted places, sort of a tie-in of restaurants, either a haunted restaurant, and we just sort of investigate and we try to help the owners. This is what I love about the show. We try to help the owners figure out what in the world is going on, because it's not always good for a homeowner or a restaurant owner, especially a business owner, to have activity when people get freaked out about it. You lose employees, you lose customers. That's one of the things that I love about this show is that we're actually going in and we're trying to help people. And I can't talk too much about it now because the episode isn't out yet, but we went into one restaurant and they've had some of the craziest stuff. They've had customers get freaked out. Their employees have gotten freaked out. They've learned to live with it. It's nothing that's negative over the years, but it was nice that I was able to go in there and actually, I take that back. There was a few negative things down in one section, but they stayed to themselves. But I was happy to be able to go in there and say to the owner afterwards, off camera, I said, you don't have anything to worry about. There is nothing here that's going to hurt you. And he looked relieved. And he was kind of, that's what I thought, but, it's always good to see. And that's the part of the paranormal that I enjoy and it makes me feel good is the spiritual part, the ghost part, the being able to help other people. Now, if you ask me if Sasquatch exists, I don't know. The Loch Ness Monster, I don't know. It's interesting to me. The big one for me is aliens. I actually had an experience many years ago as a teenager.
Oh, Lord, here we go.
But I'm not going to tell the story.
She was prodded, ladies and gentlemen.
It was not. I just saw some lights.
They found out she was Claire Huxtable and they wanted her autograph. So
they put a chip in me that every once in a while I say that Cosby is innocent. And so but that's my favorite part of this is learning myself. And it sucks because right now in the middle of the pandemic, we're sort of in limbo. We can't do much. And we were set. Now I have another group that I belong to, and we're actually starting to take up investigations again. We're going to an extremely haunted church where someone actually got thrown down the stairs at one point. It's a historic church. So we're starting to pick that up again, but it's hard to be in limbo. It's cold, it's winter, there's nothing to do anyways. And I want to be able to take what I'm learning about myself and these gifts that I have and make them more to my comfort level, we'll say, to my comfort level. Gotcha. So it's kind of a long-winded answer to your question, but the crypto side of things, I mean, the Mothman, I don't know about that. Those things interest me and I'll watch shows about them. But what really strikes a chord for me because I live it is the spirit side, the ghost side, the energy side of everything. And that's where my passion really lies. What
I have learned, however, is to not think everything is black and white. So when it comes to Sasquatch and it comes to Loch Ness and it comes to aliens, while I may not have any experience in any of those areas, and to be honest, not much of an interest in it. Mm-hmm. Now, if there's a spaceship flying over my house, I'll take some interest in it.
Beam me up, Scotty.
Exactly. But I'm not going to discount somebody else because in the same realm, those people discount energies and spirits and stuff like that too. So I think as a human race, the more open-minded we can be to things, the better off we are. That's where science came in. That's where a lot of cures for a lot of diseases came from. It was having open minds and keeping that open door policy when it comes to believing or not believing in something. Without that, a lot of things that we take for granted every day in our lives would not exist.
Right. Well, look at how much we've learned about each other and ourselves just by being open to each other about the possibility of things. How many times have you messaged me and said, hey, out of the blue, hey, are you okay? And I just got done crying because I saw my grandparents' wedding picture. And I mean, obviously we're connected. Or I'll say to you, are you doing okay today? And you're like, I'm so stressed out. It's crazy. Being open-minded about those things, I think has taught us a lot about ourselves and each other. That's helped us to grow. And that's the problem is I'm a healthy skeptic, Todd, where I need to be able to concretely, scientifically, for the most part, document something. But by the same token, you should also be going by your feelings. I don't go, I'm one of those people that I have tons of scientific equipment sitting in the other room. But when I go into a place, I use my gifts emotionally with feelings. You have to be open-minded to everything. And again, once my episodes come out, we should have a full episode on different experiences we've had that are not only scientific, but are also what we felt as we were in a place. Because I think
compare the two. Yeah.
Yeah. I think they go hand in hand. I don't think anybody should be 100% skeptical. And I don't think that anybody should be 100% gullible to what's going on. If you tell me something, we'll have a discussion on it, but I'm not going to believe everything everybody says verbatim because I just don't.
All right. So I got another question for you off that first ramble that we had earlier. So we're talking about just a little bit about the Amityville Horror House.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this thought process last night because I've had a lot of things happen in my investigations and things like that. And I've actually, not so much this house, but another house I owned had some stuff go on. And I never really get all that shook up about it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't. Now, I don't want to have a full discussion about the house, but there's a lot of question as to what really happened there.
Yeah.
How much of it is true? How much of it was made up? Where it came from? All that kind of stuff. We do know that a family was murdered there, right?
Yes.
The son killed the family. If you had the chance and the money, would you live in that house?
All right.
And let me give you my answer.
Okay.
Because I think that I would not have a problem living in a haunted house or a house that had a lot of energy. I don't think I would. I think most houses have energy, whether or not it shows itself. That house, I don't think I'd want to mess with. I don't know that I would want to live in a house where a family was murdered because I do believe in energy.
Mm-hmm.
And whether or not there's spooks flying around or ghosts coming up from the basement or devils flying around in the ceilings, whatever, whether that's going on or not, that house has got to be holding some really negative shit.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think that there's a difference between being in a house where one of my best friends, she moved into a house years ago. They did renovations and she had all kinds of things going on in the house while they were doing renovations. She had her hair pulled once. She had somebody whisper in her ear. She would see little girls. Ever since they stopped doing the renovations, that all just calmed down. That's a little bit different to me than something that had such incredible negative energy. Now, let's remember that New York State, and there are many states like this, but New York State has seen a lot of bloodshed, has seen a lot of history, has seen a lot of terror. That energy, people forget that energy does not just dissipate. That energy has to go somewhere. The energy left from, all of the things, the Indians dying and being mutilated and soldiers killing each other, and that has to go somewhere. New York State has, and I've been all over New York State, New York State has some of the most incredibly strong energy in its makeup to begin with. Okay, the ground can actually hold energy. A lot of the places that I've been to that have had activity have been near water because water is a conduit for energy. So now you've got the ground that's holding this negative energy. You've got water that's holding energy, and you have a house itself, a structure that's holding energy like that. That energy doesn't just go away. Now, while I believe, and we can get into this more in the episode that, about the Amityville house, what I believe is that energy was there. And I think that Ronald DeFeo invited it. And I believe that that's what happened in the DeFeo murders. I believe that he invited that energy there. And I do think that in the case of George and Kathleen Lutz, Christopher Quarantino and I are friends on Facebook, and he's mentioned several times, and you said a friend of yours actually interviewed him. I'd love to get him on here. I got to see if I can get him on here.
He's one of their sons. He's one of their sons, yeah. He's
one of Kathy's sons. He, to this day, insists that George was doing occult things, that George was inviting in things that he shouldn't have invited in. I think it all comes down to intentions. I think that if that demonic negative energy is in that house and he's inviting it in, what do you think is going to happen? You know, I think that in those two cases, that it was invited in some way. And I don't know how much we can believe the owners since then, but they say they haven't had any issues.
Right. But part of that too is, and we don't want to get too deep into this conversation because we can go on forever, but I think too, your energy or a person's energy and how that energy mixes with other people's energy also creates the atmosphere for this stuff. You know, the Lutzes, certainly, and the DeFeos, from what we know, had a very tumultuous relationship in their family. There was a lot of negativity. There was a lot of screaming. There was a lot of yelling. And if you were growing up in the 70s, that happened in a lot of households. It happened in mine between my parents. So
mine too.
You know, I think that, you know, that does create energy. Is it energy that you can necessarily see or hear or whatever? No, but it's still there. So I wanted to know if you could buy the house today, would you want to? And not just from like, oh, it's haunted, you know, but just because of what's happened there.
I wouldn't. I just wouldn't. As somebody who has that ability to be connected to even the prior incidents, I just would not do it. I might buy the house across the street because I think it'd be interesting to watch the goings on over there, but I don't think I could spend the time in there. Now, my own home, I don't know if it's because I've subconsciously blocked anything. Other than that one incident I told you about the other day, I haven't had anything happen here.
Right.
So I don't know. But I don't know that I could necessarily live in a place, just as a normal human being, live in a place where so much death occurred and so much negativity.
But you're also not in a situation there where you or your husband are stirring up a bunch of shit.
No.
To bring forth anything that might be there, you know?
Right.
So,
yeah, I just feel like the two incidents that happened were very much invited to occur. You know, we'll go into it more in depth in the episode, but I just feel like that was when you play with fire, that's what you get. And we know the background on the DeFeo family and how horrible that life was for all of them. And so that's just my take on it, but I would not. That's just a place I would not.
I will just one more thing on that. Last night we were talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I love Google Globe or Google World or whatever the fuck it is.
Google Map.
No, not the map. It's the one
like
with the world.
Picture. Oh, okay. All right. I know what you mean.
Because you can focus in on anything.
Right.
And I thought, I wonder if I could find this place.
You're such a kid. You're such a kid. I would do the same thing anyways.
So I go on and I look up Amityville, you know, blah, blah, blah. And a picture of the house comes up. Okay. It just shows a picture of the house. But I don't know. It doesn't show where the house is, nothing. And so we know the house is on the shoreline, blah, blah, blah. So I go, well, you know what? I'm going to take a guess. It's right about here. And I zoom in. So I do that little thing with your fingers where you pinch outward so that you get closer and closer. And if I didn't fucking nail it right on the head, I was right on the street and probably about 2 houses right next to it. And I'm like, it's kind of sits weird. It doesn't sit like a normal house would sit with the front facing the road. It faces the side. Oh my God, there it is. And then the other thing that was odd about it was Google Maps, you can go down to the street level. And for whatever reason, Google Maps, you know, kind of like blurs out the house so you can't see it, which is just weird.
Why? Why, when none of the other houses are blurred out? Why would they blur?
I don't know, but you can still look. I mean, obviously, it brings up the picture when you put Amityville, New York. The first thing it shows is a picture of the house.
Right.
And you can still see it on the map. You can kind of go do a 3D view and see the house. So I don't understand that either. It's just kind of.
Yeah, you sent me those pictures, and I think I'm going to put them up because people should see that. I think that's really odd. If there's something bad that happens, maybe crimes or something, do they blur those out?
Oh, God, there wouldn't be any freaking, there wouldn't be anything there in the city because
I know.
Building's got to have
Long Island. I like saying it. Long Island.
Is that what they say there?
Yeah, that's how they said. Dave's from Brooklyn originally, and when we first met, he doesn't anymore, but he had a very slight accent when we met, and it was pretty damn funny. Like it would come out once in a while, being from Brooklyn, so it would be a little bit. But he has been in radio for longer than you and I combined, so he's been all over the place. Indianapolis, he was in West Virginia, Pennsylvania. He's been all over the place for radio, but yeah, he held on to that a little bit. But I don't understand that. And I wonder if we could Google it and just say, why does Google Earth,
Google Earth, that's the name of it.
I know. I said it without even, did you see me hesitate? Because I was like, I said it. And maybe we should Google, why does Google Earth block out certain houses? I just think that's very odd.
Why does Google Earth block out the Amityville house? Damn it.
I wonder if it actually will have an answer.
It will. Oh, so apparently reports suggest that neighbors had mixed opinions about it showing up.
Oh, well, that makes sense. That actually makes sense. Like maybe you don't want hordes of cars coming by your house all the time.
Yeah, but of course they're going to. I mean, they changed the outlook at the siding on the house, and they changed.
It's not the same number. It's not, It's a different number now, street number. But people still know what it is. People know which house is the Amityville Horror House. They always. It's like I was watching on this great page on Facebook, Mysterious Chicago. I was telling you about it earlier, and Adam Selzer does it, and he does a lot of virtual tours around Chicago. And he went to the town where they filmed Home Alone, the movie Home Alone, the other day.
Yep.
It was hilarious. He had a little sidekick with him, and they went to the house. And all of these years later, there are still people standing in front of that house. Now, normal people live in that house. And of course, like Adam said, they must know that when they bought the house that this was going to happen, but there literally were 10 people standing in front of their house staring at their house.
Wouldn't you? I mean, like that's like the Mary Tyler Moore house in Minneapolis. When I went to Minneapolis for the very first time, I had to find the house.
It's true. I'm like that though. I am the ultimate tourist. When we go places, I research.
God. She has a picture of pictures of other pictures. She has pictures that she's taken with other pictures. I mean, it's just.
I have to go to all these famous places because I don't know if I'll get back there. So I do it. It's just a way to kind of say, look, I checked it out. I was there. So that's just how I am. I'm one of those research people. When we went to Maui for a honeymoon, and I was like, when am I ever getting back to Maui again? And I tried to, and you want to hear something horrible that happened to me in Maui?
Oh, God.
The first day I twisted my ankle. Because we were at the Four Seasons Wailea, which is like a $600 a night hotel. Britney Spears goes there. All the famous people go there.
How do you get that? How do you spend money on that? Where does that money come from?
We saved like you wouldn't believe. We spent so much money on this vacation. We flew first class, which, by the way, on the way home from Maui, we rode home on the airplane to Chicago with Kool and the Gang.
Did you get a picture of that?
Yeah. Well, they signed a picture for Dave. They were all very cool guys.
But they're like, oh my God, there's two honkies here.
I know. It was so funny though, because Dave goes, I think that's Kool in the Gang. And I was like, oh, okay. Because I didn't know.
How do you figure out it is? Do you start singing their songs and see if they look?
He went up to the guy that looked like the manager.
Oh
he goes, is this like he said something like, is this like a band or something? And the guy goes, yeah, this is Kool in the Gang. And so we rode home with them. They all had their It was a very cool experience. But so we stayed at the Four Seasons Wailea, and it was absolutely beautiful. It was so funny because I played this game where if you left your hotel room for 5 minutes, you come back and everything was perfect again.
Ew.
I was convinced that they had little trap doors somewhere where they would just come in real quick and then go out and you couldn't see them. It was really crazy. So anyways, beautiful pool area leading down to the ocean. They've got people coming and spritzing your face, and it's just wonderful. And here I take a header right down the stairs. So and back then I literally weighed 300 pounds back then. So my ankle was so swollen. So for the whole time that we were there, I couldn't do half the things that I could do them now because I have a lot less weight on me than I did back then, but I couldn't probably do them anyways. But it was a beautiful time. We did the road to Hana. We went to Hohopeka Beach, which is a windsurfer beach. It's absolutely beautiful, but that was beautiful. And so I did everything that I could possibly do. I took as many pictures as I could because I was like, when am I ever going to get back to Maui again? You know, that's
right.
just how I am. I didn't have much money growing up. We were pretty poor. So I learned quickly that, you know, when you get an experience, the chance and an experience, you take advantage of it as much as you can. There you go.
That's the audio from the plane ride back.
Well, wait, it's even more fitting because we had horrible turbulence.
Oh my God.
At one point, one of the guys from the band was about to come out of the bathroom, and the flight attendant went, "Get back in there." And she slammed the door on him, which now I look back and it was pretty comical, but at the time it was really bad turbulence, so everybody was nervous. But so we were all kind of like going, woohoo, because we didn't know what was going on at that point. It was an eventful flight back. But I can say that I hung out with Kool and the gang on the airplane.
And now, Touched with Greatness by Brittany, Sandy, whoever the hell she is.
So now on Smooth 70s, if I hear a Kool and the Gang song, I get all excited.
You can tell a story. I saw Kool and the Gang on the plane ride home from Maui, where I busted my ankle.
We hung out with it. Yeah, that was a wonderful trip, and yet it was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
Oh God, she's gonna start doing Oliver Twist.
No, I'm not. I just like that saying because it's true. So I'm very excited that we are going to be doing this Toddcast. I like that name, by the way. That was pretty funny. Very good. I'm excited because we're going to talk about anything. We're going to talk about Twisted Towns, which is an idea that we had maybe a year ago that we never did anything with. And so tell everybody what Twisted Towns, the premise is of Twisted Towns.
Well, you know, it actually starts from the empath side of things, where sometimes you can go someplace and you just get feelings, right?
Yep.
And I had this theory that every town has their chamber of commerce that puts on the summer picnic, and they do the, you know, gift giving at Christmas for the families, and they, you know, they're promoting everything that's great about their small town. But underneath it all, there's all these stories of things that happened in history, and nobody ever really talks about them. And so I thought we could talk about these Twisted Town stories where it's by day, it's this wonderful little place where you can go shopping in downtown.
These picturesque little towns in the U.S.
Right on the lake, and do your fishing and get the family in the cabin for the weekend. And then, 10 years ago, there was an axe murder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or in the case, one of the Twisted Towns episodes we're going to do is about good old Utica, New York, which was considered the Sin City of the East Coast for quite a long time.
Well, and there's another tie into Kool and the Gang. I mean, talk about celebration.
I'll say. And I didn't know this, but I'm related to a gangster, to a mobster, a mafia guy who killed people.
That's good to know. Why didn't I find this out in the we're working up to a friendship kind of thing? Why wasn't this on the questionnaire?
I should put it on my business card. By the way, just a warning. So So we're gonna talk about that too, because the more I looked into it, the creepier and I have to say the scarier it got for me, because Utica on the surface in a lot of ways is a great city. And there's lots of opportunity here, but especially in the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, right into the early 90s, there was a lot of mafia action going on. People were getting killed. There is a very well-known lawyer from Utica who defended a lot of these mobsters, who actually has a tie to a U.S. congressman right now. Who I know personally is a wonderful man.
Did he ever go to Maui?
I don't know if he ever went to. I'll have to message him and ask him. I'll have to ask him. Hey, guess what? I know this, but have you ever gone to Maui?
I've got a brand new game we can play.
Oh,
One Up Sandy. So you tell a story, and then we find out if that other person has either experienced something similar or if they can top your story. Like, can you top the story of Sandy riding home from her Honeymoon with Kool and the Gang. Oh, but I was on a plane one time with, Elvis right before he died. And he was in he was in the toilet doing Quaaludes and he couldn't take a shit, something like that.
It's funny. I love stories. I love telling stories. I love it. They always say, well, if somebody tells you something, you shouldn't say, oh, but, and try to be relatable. You should just let them tell the story. But I just love telling stories. It's life experience. So, that'll be hilarious. And we're going to play Name That Tune. Yeah. You're going to try and torture me with that. I know I'm going to suck. Already.
I've got one for you. Can we just play one real quick?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Let's try it.
See if you know this. Name this tune. Here it comes. Listen closely. Come on.
Well, it sounds like Lionel Richie's All Night Long.
There you go.
Yay! I did it. Woohoo! I got it. It took me a second, too, until a few seconds in, and then I got it.
It was the Sandy and Toddcast Orchestra that performed that for you today. So
when I was a kid, here I go with a story, but this is funny. When I was a kid, I was convinced that for each song on the radio, the entire band came into the studio and performed the song live.
Every time it played?
Yeah. That's what I thought. I was six, but that's what I thought. Huh. That it was a live performance by each musician.
And why wasn't this on the friendship questionnaire either? I may have made
I learned fairly quickly. It wasn't like I was 38 and I was still thinking that, but I was a little kid and that's what I thought.
I love it. One-upped by Sandy. And then people can give us their stories and then you have to see if you can one-up them.
I'll be like, oh yeah, well, there was this one time at band camp. So
he had a flute. So
So anyways, yeah, so this is going to be a lot of fun. I hope people join us on this journey because we are a couple of goofballs and we love each other and we just,
oh God,
we're going to do, yeah, we do. We're going to get serious, but we're going to have a lot of fun while we're doing it. And
all right.
It's going to be a lot of really cool episodes coming your way. And I'm looking forward to it. The Sandy and Toddcast. I love that. We were throwing ideas around and there were some really silly ones. And
yep. There was, we were going to call it Martha Stewart Living, but that was already taken. And so
I like that one personally.
Yeah.
So
she's a cool lady.
All right. We're wrapping it up. So now everybody kind of has an idea of who we are and what we want to do. We're both kind of hermits right now and working
right
from
now,
home.
I'm always a hermit. I've been
you're always a hermit. You're always a hermit.
Pandemic hermit here.
Yeah. I'm a newly formed hermit. I used to go 150 miles an hour. Now I'm at like 35, like on the Utica Parkway. You can't go more than 35, but I'm enjoying it. I like it.
Good.
We can be hermits together. Anyways, thank you everybody for joining us. Todd, I love you dearly. Thanks for joining us for the introductory, I'm doing the fingers again, introductory episode of the Sandy and Toddcast. And I hope you'll join us next week for some insanity. I'm not sure what we're doing yet.
We'll find out.
We'll find out.
Bye.
Bye.
How many more miles left in this race? How long it takes, I don't know.